around, you can see that Roy would have real full friends and family. He was very rich in that sense. I'm going to try to read this because if I was going to go off the cuff, I was afraid I wasn't going to make it. The life of Roy Larkin began in Ellensburg, Washington, September 7, 1958, to Betty and Elliot Larkin. At the time he was born, Roy had two older siblings, James and Diana, and not long after that, Julie, Sharon, and Stephen were welcomed amongst the brothers and sisters. Despite losing his father at 2 years old, Roy was a happy and energetic young man. As a child, he was inquisitive, always interested in how things worked and operated. The boy had a fearless wild streak to him too, though, and he was open to almost any adventure that came across his path, be it dangerous or not. After his father passed and mother remarried, Roy and the rest of the family moved to Kittitas in 1962. The town seemed to suit Roy fine, and he quickly found work at 8 years old as a paper delivery boy. It was just a year later, however, that Roy developed two disciplines that he took with him to the end. First, he began at 9 years old to moonlight by selling Christmas cards door to door with his sister Deanna on top of his paper delivery. Roy always had a couple of irons in the fire. Second, and surely what must have been the seed for a successful life in sales, Roy quickly found himself joining forces in hustling packets of seed with Deanna for hard-earned money. When the winter came and no seeds were to be found, the trio moved on to their next scheme, going door to door offering to shovel walkways for 50 cents a clearing. After that was perhaps the third and most difficult discipline that Roy mastered for his life at that tender age: the value of a hard day's work, and also that work is hard. In his freshman year of high school, Roy and the family moved to Ellensburg, where he attended the school bearing the city's name. Roy thrived in the new atmosphere when most teenagers would be whining about the move so late in childhood. Roy never whined, though, unless, of course, he shanked his tee shot on the 17th. High school life fit Roy well. He joined the football team and worked hard to prove him, quickly earning starter status as both a linebacker and a receiver. In the summers, he baled hay to get strong for the upcoming football season, and in the winters, he and his sisters created quite the monopoly in the babysitting market in Ellensburg, watching any child anywhere. Just after high school, Roy moved into somewhat of his gypsy phase, living in Spokane and even moving to Pocatello, Idaho, to live with his sister. The man was in search of who he was and who he wanted to be. It is no coincidence that at that time he rediscovered Jesus and was reborn. He had already been a member of the Nazarene church through childhood, but this was different than doing what he was raised to do. It was an actual time of rededication for Roy, and he found a new purposeful intent to stay on God's path. In 1980, Roy returned to Washington State, beginning to set up long-standing roots in the Tacoma area that would eventually become his permanent place of home. Mind you, he still moved around to places like Utah and Colorado for a spell, but he always ended up back around Tacoma, his chosen place of refuge. Through the 80s, Roy continued to work in construction part-time while also trying his hand at selling insurance. He became an Amway representative before the company was even a household name, and he did well in the venture. Roy also married during this time, and though it didn't work out, he gave it his all and continued to look for the rest of his life for a special woman who could be the last love he ever needed. Roy had the good looks and charming nature to live a playboy lifestyle. Women constantly confused him for the lead singer of the band The Who, Roger Daltrey. I'm sure you all agree he was definitely a doppelganger. Yet Roy didn't go down this path of temptation. He didn't want any of that madness. Instead, he stuck with his Christian roots and simply looked for a woman who he could spend the rest of his life with. As the 80s ended, Roy was again single. He returned to his carpentry roots, adding in remodeling jobs and laying vinyl and installing laminate countertops. It was about this time, as a pain-in-the-rump teenager, that I went to stay with Roy for a summer. Truly, he opened his doors to me as I stayed in his home and ate his food. He was nothing if not gracious and overjoyed to have family with him. It was my first real job, and I was to serve as an apprentice under Roy. He drove his trusty golden van all over western Washington, beautifying homes with Roy's master craftsman techniques. I'm afraid I wasn't much of a carpenter, or even that good of an apprentice, but Roy never hinted at my lack of skills or attention span. He patiently showed me every trick he knew, and had nothing but praise for whatever I did. If I made a mistake, and even if that mistake was going to cost him money, It was only a bump in the road on the way to my own tool belt. Roy slaved away every day with the greatest of energy and care. He not only wanted to get the job done, he wanted to do it perfectly. While I never learned the trade fully, the lessons I learned that summer about hard work and doing a job right still carries on with me to this day. It would be impossible to be around Roy. It would be impossible around Roy for that amount of time and not have some of his strength and passion rub off on me. By the late 90s, Roy had remarried, become a diligent stepfather, and found what may have been his true love for the rest of his life. Talking, of course, about his discovery of golf. Before he found it, Roy once bragged to me. He said, "There isn't a sport that I can't master." Anything he picked up, from football to darts, were easy activities that just took a little bit of time to fully dominate the competition. You never hear him say he'd ever mastered golf. It was a sport that took patience and concentration, both of which Roy had in spades. He found peace on the courses, walking along fairways, joking with friends, leaned over his putter, or just sitting back in the cart, watching the sun begin to set on the 18th hole. With the exception of his family and friends, nothing else gave Roy the enjoyment he received from golfing. A few days ago, my mom called me up and she said she'd talked to the medical examiner who had done the autopsy for Roy. And she said that they just mentioned it had nothing to do with his death, but he had too big of a heart. Too large. Now, this isn't a shock to any of you. We all know anybody who came in contact with him that Roy had way too big of a heart. His love was unconditional, and he was giving to everybody. Didn't matter who you were, where you were, if he just met you, or if he'd known you for his life. You know, like as you said, Bobby's best friend. You're instantly his best friend. I'm going to just finish up with just one story, and this goes back to my childhood, and I think it really epitomizes Roy. It's my first memories of him. We'd go on the backyard, and we'd be throwing the football. And I was so young, things like a pumpkin in my hands. And he's coaching me up. He loves Steve Largent and Jim Zorn and Dave Craig Seahawks. He said, "Oh, you're going to be the next Largent." A couple years this went on. He had me believing. Now I'm still 6 years old. We go to this family reunion. Little did I know he was setting me up for something. We go to the family reunion, and there's this backyard football game that would go on in our family. Pretty rough, pretty tumble. Roy, so the rest of these guys, all grown men, he says, "My nephew's going to be in this game." I said, no, he's too young, he's going to get hurt, don't do this. No, he can play, he's going to be in this game. I came in, was on his team, he drafted me since nobody else would have me on the team. I went the whole game, I was mostly a decoy. But sure enough, we get to the last play, and it's for all the marbles, and we're huddling up, and Roy's the quarterback, and he lays his big steely blue eyes onto me, and says, "You ready?" Yes, and I was ready actually. And that's the thing is I was scared, but I also knew from our times of playing football and from him telling me, "You can do it. You've got great hands. You're natural at this. You've got it." So he says, "You go deep." So we hike and I run and I'm open. My guys let me go. Roy looks at me and he doesn't throw it. And I keep running. He finally lets it go, and the thing looks like a pebble by this point coming out of his hand. And I see the ball coming in, I still just remember his words as it's coming in. "You can catch it, you can catch it." And I did catch it. And we won the game. And Roy proudly showed me off for the whole rest of the barbecue, saying, "He was the one, this is my protege, this is my..." I did this. Get ready to develop. That was Roy. You know, he believed in you, he made you believe in yourself, and there was never any point of wavering with him. There was no, maybe you can do it. And that positivity and love, and as I said, unconditional love is, I think, one of the biggest things that stands out about him. So, thank you.